Hi, I'm Marc, and on this channel I talk about Brexit and UK politics. Do people now regret Britain voting to leave the EU 7 years ago? Well, according to a study, many people are dissatisfied with the political development since then, but most would make the same decision again as they did in the 2016 Brexit referendum, although we heard different before. But this is the conclusion reached by the think tanks UK in a Changing Europe and Public First in an analysis published yesterday. Although many supporters are of the opinion that things are not going well with Brexit, that does not necessarily mean that they regret their decision. Only 16% of people surveyed who supported Brexit back then would vote differently today. Conversely, 6% of opponents would vote for Brexit today. This report shows that many assumptions about Brexit supporters now unhappy with the consequences are wrong. That's at least what researcher Sophie Stowers says. It would be presumptuous to assume that dissatisfaction with the implementation of Brexit would automatically lead to people subsequently preferring to stay in the EU or wanting Great Britain even to re-enter the EU. The study surveyed around 4,000 people in the UK online between May 26th and June 2nd. The results were weighed, for example, according to age, gender, and religion. The correspondent tables had already been published in the summer. In addition, 5 focus groups were surveyed qualitatively between May and September as well. The study also makes life more difficult for Keir Starmer, who is finding it difficult to decide on his party's course for the next elections. With a clear lead in the polls, British opposition leader Keir Starmer has warned his Labour Party now against recklessness. In order to win the coming general election, the party has to step up a gear, as he says. And Starmer told the Sunday newspaper Observer at the start of this year's Labour Party conference in Liverpool. The Social Democrats are indeed well ahead of Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party in the polls, and the next general election is expected to take place in 2024. Labour could then take over government. And Starmer announced on the BBC that he would withdraw the Tories' controversial plans to immediately deport all migrants who arrived irregularly to Britain, and that to Rwanda if he won the election, even if the highest court declared the plan to be legal, which I personally doubt, by the way. He also wants to invest around £1.5 billion in the NHS to finance overtime for doctors and nursing staff, which will not be enough, by the way. In return, certain tax benefits will be eliminated. That's what Starmer told the Sunday Mirror newspaper. The opposition leader wants to prove himself as a candidate for real political change after Prime Minister Sunak recently tried to present himself as a representative of a radical new beginning at the Tory annual meeting, despite his party's 13 years in power. At the Labour conference, numerous delegates, activists and representatives of associated organisations do discuss political and social issues until Wednesday. Starmer wants to address the party conference in a speech today on the afternoon, the day I'm publishing this video, so it's not part of this yet. But party leader Starmer is focusing on a middle course, but abandoning populism could become a problem. Keir Starmer tells a story very, very often, and that's the story of his origins. His father was a toolmaker who worked in a factory, and his mother worked in the state health service before becoming seriously ill. It is the story of a politician who was not born with a degree or a career, who nevertheless studied law and rose to a top position in the public prosecutor's office and is now the leader of the Labour Party and may soon be Prime Minister. This Keir Starmer talks about the glass ceiling that separates the upper class from the lower class, which he wants to break through. Young adults' futures are more influenced by what their parents earn than by their abilities, and that would be unforgivable. That's why he's passionate about changing that, as he said in an interview with the BBC. It is a classic social democratic narrative of equal opportunities, justice, and of course social cohesion. And that is supposed to be important to him. British society is more rigid than anywhere else. Boris Johnson, for example, as Prime Minister, understood how to appeal to many Labour voters with his shirt-sleeved manner, despite his background in wealth and even though he attended the elite school Eton. The political culture in the UK is one of populism, of simple messages, and Starmer doesn't always succeed in this game. He speaks in a more differentiated manner and seems boring. In a survey by the polling institute YouGov, 46% of those surveyed said no when asked whether Starmer had a connection with normal people. Only 26% said yes. The party leader, who is allowed to wear the title Sir because of his performance as a public prosecutor, who has a really authentic story to tell, many people just don't believe him. Starmer has recognized how important this rise story is, and that was said by Carl Pike recently, a lecturer at Queen Mary University in London, which is why he repeats it so often. But if you listen to it again and again, you'll probably be bored by it. But Starmer ignores this in the fight for his image. The top politician has had to fight a lot in recent years. In 2020, he replaced Jeremy Corbyn as party leader. And with his clear left-wing course, Corbyn lost the 2019 elections with a crash. Starmer moved the party back to the centre. Labour stands united at the party conference in Liverpool, at least until the beginning. That's what I can talk about. At the moment, there's no more trench warfare over left-wing tax policy that was never able to win a majority, or even over the United Kingdom's NATO membership. And Starmer wants to be the person who is believed to be able to govern well, to end the Tories' chaos. He promises economic growth, a pragmatic approach to the European Union without offending Brexit supporters, opportunities for advancement, and a new housing policy, although he still really owes me answers on his Brexit policy. That doesn't sound visionary either, more like brown bread, but the polls for Labour are excellent, benefiting from the Tories' weakness. 46% of voters would vote for Starmer, and the Conservatives only get 27% according to the polling institute Savanta. Starmer simply needs to make it to the next elections, which must take place by the end of 2024, without an accident, as the party says. He just has to carry the Ming vase safely across the finish line, as someone said. However, despite the current lead in the opinion polls, this will likely be a balancing act. If he relies too heavily on security, he excludes a lot, and then he comes into government and no longer has any leeway. But if Starmer is too cautious, the Conservatives will always set the agenda. That's another opinion by Carl Pike. And the election campaign could then become populist and shrill. And this would not be the ideal terrain for Starmer, who cannot counter populism with even shriller statements, but only with objectivity. And playing with the mentioned valuable vase, well, it's not that easy. And Starmer has a lot to answer for. And as I promised tomorrow, I will also talk about the trouble within the party and what the left wing of the party is really angry about. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.